Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. So today I am doing another attempt at showing you my coffee table book collection. I filmed a version of this before, but then I decided to redo it to get a better look into the books themselves. So I'm actually going to do a voiceover for most of this video so you can see more of the insides of these books, because I think especially with coffee table books they are so heavy that it's difficult to really show you when I'm holding them up in the air. So I've sort of done a layout thing for them. But basically today I just wanted to show you and go through my coffee table book collection that I have, and most of them are related to art, some of them are related to nature or sort of niche topics that you might not have even considered looking for books on those topics. So I hope that this will be a source of inspiration of books that you might be interested in checking out, maybe for the sort of post-Christmas period or just in general, books that you are maybe curious about. And I have also this time included my Disney art book collection that is towards the end of the video. If you are interested, stick around for that. So I hope you enjoy seeing the books, and I'll talk more about them as I go. And that was all. Let's get through the books. The first book is Beyond the Dark Veil, Post-Mortem and Mourning photography from the Thanatos archive. This is a photography book with post-mortem and mourning photography, as well as a few essays on death rituals, death attitudes, how death ceremonies have changed over the years, as well as some history on photography. And it is divided into different types of photographs. As you can see, there's, for example, one section specifically for pets. These are stunning photographs that were often the only ones left of an individual before they died. The next one is Cabin Porn. This is the collection of stories of people who have built cabins or houses, buildings, in different parts of the world, in various woods and forests, and it is a collection of photographs as well as the stories of the people who live in them. And I think this is a beautiful book if you know someone who is sort of dreaming of that, living in a cabin in the woods, or who are drawn to nature, and also the design of buildings and things using natural materials, which is definitely prevalent in this book. My favorite part was the one on tree houses. That is an entire chapter in this book that I absolutely loved, and because I always dreamed of having a tree house. Definitely a lot of inspiration to gain from this book. Next is 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. The one I have is from 2013, and I have used this one as a reference. As you can see, I have postcards and post-notes in the book that I have added my own thoughts on the movies that I've seen, or at least that I've seen actively through choosing from this book. But it's just a really fun reference book, and of course there's tons of different 1001 insert the rest here you must do before you die. But I think especially the movie one I find fairly helpful as a reference point to come back to as well. Next is 1920s Fashion, the Definite Sourcebook. This is mostly a book filled with lots of illustrations, although there is a lengthier introductory essay in this book talking about the decade and the fashion overall. Most of it is divided into different parts of the day in terms of clothing. So day wear, evening wear, sportswear I think is one, or lounge wear, that kind of thing. And it has all of these beautiful photographs and illustrations, parts of advertisement or from magazines, filled with glorious 1920s fashion. And I know that this book is part of a series. There's definitely one for the 30s and 40s, and I think there might be one for the 70s and for the 80s as well, if you're interested in fashion history. The next one we have is The Secret Life of Colors by Kassia St. Clair. This is a book about colors. So in the beginning of the book, there is a lengthier chapter on vision and color vision and the physics of it. But then most of the rest of the book is just stories on different colors, how they have been created, what they have been used for, what they're known for. So in that sense, it is a coffee table book, even though there's very little pictures in this. It's just the colors and the stories. The next one is Avian Illuminations. This is a very recent publication that I got from the publisher for review. I'm currently reading it. It is a book all about humans' fascination with birds and how birds have been used and represented in religion, in history, in art, and it's just filled with these beautiful paintings and embroidery and photographs, all kinds of things on birds, and it's a beautiful book that I'm really enjoying reading so far. Next is Monet on Location. So this is a pretty self-explanatory title. It's basically Monet drawing different places that he has been. He draws different locations, and there is mostly a lot of his paintings in this book, and then obviously you can see there's actual text to go along with it, and I haven't read this one, so I don't really know what the text is talking about, but I suspect it's about his experience in the different locations and how he got inspiration to draw different paintings of his body of work. And I really like having art books like this to look at in actual paper. This one is Brännpunkt Europa 1919 till 1940. This is actually a book, or it's a combination of a book and a catalog for the exhibition in Gothenburg's Art Museum. This exhibition just finished in October, and I actually won this through the museum store through a giveaway that they did. This exhibition was about the 20s and 30s in particular in Europe and the interwar years and how it was represented and reflected in art from different parts of the world, but mostly Europe. And it was just a fascinating exhibition, definitely one of my favorites that I've been to in this art museum. So I was really happy to have this book. And I think it's also, there was a lot of beautiful art pieces that I now have these beautiful glossy pages to look through. Next is ABBA, the Photobook. So this is one of my most recent acquisitions. It is a photography book on ABBA, basically photographs throughout their career. So like with a lot of the other ones, this is also filled with text and stories about them. But the photographs, particularly from the 70s, is what drew me to this book. The fashion alone, but also the photographs themselves, I think, are just stunning. And ABBA is such an iconic group that I just couldn't pass this one up when I saw it in a local thrift store. Really, really beautiful photographs, and this is quite a heavy and big book for the reproduction of these photographs. Next one is The Lost Words by Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris. So this is a kind of unusual coffee table book in that it is actually Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris chose certain words related to the natural world that were being lost or being forgotten, and Robert Macfarlane wrote about that more in landmarks, I think. But then in this particular book, he writes poetry, observations related to those words, and Jackie Morris has illustrated them. and the combination of that is just a beautiful, beautiful book. Next is The Art of Beatrix Potter, and this is mostly her illustrations and paintings on nature. Some of them are of her more scientific studies, some of them are related to her books for children, and other illustrations and paintings that she's done on nature that hasn't had anything to do with the books or her science studies. She had a lifelong love and passion for nature, so this is just filled with art and paintings that show that interest. This one is The Natural World of Winnie the Pooh, a walk through the forest that inspired the 100-Acre Wood. So this is kind of a combination of a tour guide and a Mill Near Shepherd biography as well. But basically it is talking about the real nature and specific places that inspired the illustrations by A. Shepherd and the stories by A. Milne. This is Lost Animals, and this is a book about animals that have now gone extinct, and this is the photographic record of them. It's a quite depressing topic for a book, but again, I am always drawn to books on nature of any kind, even the ones that are depressing, which a lot of them would probably fit that description. But this one is photographs, as I said, of animals that have gone extinct. This one is Selma på Mårbacka. This is about Selma Lagerlöf and her childhood home. So Mårbacka was the house and the land that her family had owned for generations, and then her father had to sell it off, and she eventually bought it back later in her career when she had made a fortune, and it meant so much to her. So now I think it is a museum. In the present day, it is a museum, but this book is about this place and its significance for Selma Lagerlöf. So it's a combination of talking about the history of the place, but also the other activities going on there. This one is Dreaming Girls. This is a collection of Makoto Takahashi's illustrations, and he is one of my favorite Japanese illustrators. He has made all of these really intricate paintings and illustrations of various figures from fairy tales, from children's literature, from ballets. So I know that there's pieces on the Swan Lake and very 1960s shoyo styled. This is Rebellen from Vimmerby. This is kind of the equivalent to Selma på Mårbacka for Astrid Lindgren. This is about Vimmerby, that is her hometown. And this one is kind of, again, a book on Vimmerby's significance for her in her authorship, as well as sort of a story of the town itself, and again with beautiful photographies and things from the location. To sort of, I think it's a lovely thing to have if you have enjoyed Astrid Lindgren's stories and see all of the real places that have definitely made an impact in a lot of her children's books. Next, we have The Art and Flair of Mary Blair. This is the beginning of my Disney art books. So this one particularly is on Mary Blair, who was one of the most well-known women to work in the Disney studios. And she is particularly known for her work, I would say 50s particularly. In the thing that stands out in her career is her use of color that was so unique to the company, and that Walt Disney really, really admired about her work. This one is The Art of Walt Disney. This is the first Disney art book that I got, and it's kind of more of a general Disney history. So this one I have read a good amount of, and I suspect it touches on a lot of sort of Walt Disney biography that I've already read in other books. But this one, as I said, is more of a general history of the Disney studios. It doesn't really have any particular focus other than Walt Disney himself. I think it's probably a good book to get if you are interested in Disney history and you have just one book. It's probably a good one to get to have sort of an overview rather than the other ones that often are more niche. This one is the fairest one of all. So this one is particularly on Snow White. So it talks about the production of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs all the way from the source material and the different adaptations or the different styles of the fairy tale, and how they used the fairy tale and developed it to create the first movie of the Disney studio, the first full movie of the Disney studio. So you can see all of the steps in order to make that finished movie, with a lot of character design and all of that thing. All of the things that I absolutely love about the Disney art books is the character design, sketches and all of that. All of the intricate design aspects of the Disney movies, that is one of the main things that draws me to it. This one is The Illusion of Life, and this one is a little bit different from the other ones in that it is about the Disney studios and the Disney classics, but it is about animation specifically. So the art of animation and the art of creating an illusion of life. So this one is actually often listed in sort of books to get if you're an aspiring animator. This is often in the top of those lists because it is about the actual process of creating animation. And I'm not an aspiring animator, but I love animation with all of my heart. So this one was a must get for me, especially because of how highly it is regarded by people who are active in the industry. And again, you see a lot of the behind the scenes design aspects of creating the movies. The next one is a Disney sketchbook. In comparison to most of the other ones, this one doesn't actually have any text other than perhaps a foreword, but it is a collection of sketches from the Disney studios. So it's basically like they have chosen a selection of sketches from their archives to put together in this book. And I think this might be, again, a part of a series of their sketchbooks. I feel like there are maybe sketchbooks for different types of sketches, but as you can see, a lot of these are for characters. So there might be different equivalents for backgrounds and that kind of thing as well. This one is The Making of Pinocchio, the Disney epic. And again, this is the same author that did the fairest one of all that I showed you, with a similar style. It's basically all about the production of Pinocchio from the Italian classic children's tale to the finished movie. It just goes through all of the different steps in creating it, and I think you can, through these books that talk specifically on movies, you can get a sense of all of the work that went into creating them and all of the people involved. And I only have these art books for particular movies, for Snow White and Pinocchio, but I would like to collect more of them. The next one I have is They Drew as They Pleased. This one is particularly from the Disney Golden Age, quote unquote, and this is again a part of a series of art books for concept artists. So the people included in this book and in the other ones in the series have been instrumental in guiding the direction of different Disney classics. They're basically the muses, but combined with the artist to inspire the flow of, or the style of the movie in its entirety. And the one I have is just, as I said, one in the series of that. This is Ink and Paint. So this is about the women who have been working in the Disney studio, particularly the women who worked in the ink and paint department, who were responsible for the paint, the actual coloring most of the time of the old cells that they used in classic traditional Disney animation. And so it's a story about the women themselves and their history and biography, but then also showing their work. And they were often belittled and not given enough credit in the history of the studio. So if you're interested in more about them or about the women in the Disney studios, then definitely read the Natalia Holt's book, Queens of Animation. But this one, as I said, is about the women working in the ink and paint department specifically. And I love that because the colors of the Disney animation is one of my favorite aspects of it. Last up, I have two books that are published by Taschen, and they are the most expensive ones I have. They are the most heavy ones I have. This one is Mickey Mouse, The Ultimate History, and it came out around the 100-year anniversary, I think, for Mickey Mouse. And as I said, it is much bigger, so it doesn't even fit into frame. It was difficult to film it because it's so big, and I usually keep it in the little bag, like satchel thing that came with the book when I bought it. If you are interested in this book, I would highly recommend getting the paperback version of this. But it is a beautiful book, and it's the history of Mickey Mouse, which is pretty self-explanatory. He's an icon, and he has gotten this. This is a book entirely devoted to him. So the last one is Walt Disney Film Archives. So this is pretty much what it says. It is a history of the studio and tons and tons of material from their archives. It's beautiful, and the paper quality is so good that the colors on the pages just really come through, which is good with this kind of book with a lot of illustrations and paintings or stills from the movies, that you can really see all of the detail in their design. So those are all of the books that I have in my coffee table book collection. I hope that you found something of interest or something that seemed interesting to you. I haven't read any of these, or I have read maybe two of these cover to cover. Most of them I've just sort of flipped through and read pieces of. And I suspect that I will be reading a lot of these over a lifetime rather than reading them in the near future cover to cover, just because they're so big. It's not the kind of book that you necessarily read in one gulp because of the size and heft of them. But they can be really interesting nevertheless, and definitely great books to have in mind when you are gifting books as well. So that was all I wanted to say today. I hope you're doing well, you're taking care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!